Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Flip podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're flipping through a story about the rise of a populist left. What is it going to look like? Is Bernie Sanders going to be the leader? So on and so forth. And of course, we will end today with our Daily Delight, a story meant to leave you feeling positive. I'm ready to take on the day. But hey, that's enough rambling from me. Let's jump into our daily debate. So, is there room on the left for a populist movement? Not necessarily the Democratic Socialists of America, but maybe something that is more palatable, mainstream, doesn't necessarily have socialists in the name, more progressive values, but not necessarily going to the extent that DSA does. That is the question here. I want to hear your opinions. Throw it down in the comment section because I think there's room for it. Does that mean that we should see one? Not necessarily. But it's not going to preclude anybody. It's not going to stop anybody from actually going out and doing it, especially when the progressive man-in-chief, essentially Bernie Sanders, is out there saying, hey, this is something that we need to consider. So this article comes from The Nation with the headline reading, Left Populists, Unshackle Your Imaginations. And this is a pretty critical view of what the current Democratic Party and progressives in said Democratic Party are going through. And obviously, after a huge loss with Joe Biden not being able to defeat Donald Trump and Kamala Harris not being able to defeat Donald Trump, neither of them were looking like it was possible, though Kamala had a little bit of a resurgence there towards the middle of her campaign when she was actually out there on the ground doing lots of different campaigns. But at the end of the day, they lost. They have to reevaluate. They have to look inward and say, what is going to be the next step here? And you're having lots of mainstream Democrats saying, oh, hey, well, it was just the Donald Trump effect, or we've stopped talking to the middle-class voter. We need to continue to talk to the middle-class voter. Or, hey, it was just Joe Biden. It was Kamala Harris. They're bad candidates. And Joe Biden was a president that wasn't able to actually assuage the fears of many of the United States people. Fair enough. You can make all those arguments, though. There is something missing there. The sentiment that we need to reorient towards the working class is getting close. But why has Donald Trump been able to effectively cultivate the image of someone who cares about the average American and is able to capture the populist sentiment? That is because he's talking about issues that hit the kitchen table. He is bombastic and loud about the system, even if he is a part of it now, even if he is somebody who's taken millions from PACs with big dollar donors coming in and telling him, hey, this would actually be a really great policy. Maybe we should consider this, that, or the other. What is the left need to learn from that situation where someone's playing the outsider? They feel disaffected. The working class feels as though they do not have a voice. Why was Bernie Sanders so popular in 2016 and 2020? Because he was a man, whether you like him or not, whether you think his ideas are good or not, whether you like the way that he speaks or not. There is something about his affect. There is something that he speaks to, not only the way he says certain things, but also the policies that he implements, and the way that he tries to always set the narrative, which is it's us versus them. It's you and me, the populace, the normal people, versus the wealthy, the entrenched government powers, the entrenched lobbyists, so on and so forth. That sentiment is strong, especially as I've done analysis in the past. This generation is coming out of the 2008 financial crisis. They looked at the Occupy Wall Street movement. They saw that these big bankers have gotten away with with a lot, especially now that they've gone through COVID and we saw lots of wealth stripped from the small mom and pop shops and once again given to large corporate interests. That is going to have an impact. Whether or not you agree or disagree that those corporate interests deserve that money, I'm not trying to get into the philosophy of capitalism, social responsibility in capitalism, all these different areas. No, that's not what we're talking about here. Because though those are important topics, it doesn't necessarily matter how you want to solve it if the issue that people are recognizing is that there are a few who see a system that they can exploit, and the many feel as though they are being left out of said system. You don't have to necessarily, I'm not saying a certain solution is right or wrong, but the fact that you identify that, the fact that you harp on that, the fact that you talk to the concerns of the average day person who is sitting there saying, I feel as though I'm being stripped of, I feel as though I'm being taken advantage of, so on and so forth, you can really tap into a grassroots movement. You can tap into people's victim mentality. And though people should not have a victim mentality, as the United States of America, we are not founded on the victim mentality. We are founded on the mentality of we move past it. We continue to grow. We get better. We do not let our current situations, previous situations hold us back. We do not let somebody else putting their thumb on the scale actually stop us. We persevere. We keep on pushing. And obviously, not every single American has been able to overcome any of the systematic problems, or just the wealthy people, or even just somebody out there trying to gun for them. They don't necessarily even have to be wealthy. They could just be in a position where they can exercise a little bit of power. But though not every single person is able to walk away from those situations and come out better, all the people that do, normally, all the people that do succeed have those sort of stories. And we've been able to cultivate a careful narrative of what America stands for with those sort of stories. And though we have worked hard as a nation, as a tool of propaganda in order to build this sort of idea, the victim mentality continues to creep in. And no longer is it relegated to left or right. It is more divided across class lines at this point. It was race politics for many years. Now it is going to be class politics, period, full stop. Bernie Sanders has been tapping into it for a long time, but the fact that 2016, they basically had to shoehorn him out. They had to say, no, 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 we're not actually going to let that happen. We're going to let Hillary win. We're going to make sure that the superdelegates come behind her, basically box him out during the convention. There is a reason that they had to do that, and that's because he was talking about the issues that people care about. He was tapping into the us versus them mentality, as I spoke about earlier, and therefore you can see the synthesis of everything here. He was able to really tap in to that class politics angst that so many people are having. And class politics angst is not the end of societies, but it is the degradation of societies. Rather than being able to say, hey, we want to expand the pie for everybody, we start to say, no, 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 we need to cut up this pie differently and stop worrying about expanding the pie. So I understand that there are issues there, but that does not stop us from having these important conversations. All of those things being true, that does not stop us from having the important conversations about what party can rise, what person, influencer, whatever you want to call them, figurehead of the party or the movement can rise in order to truly capture the sentiment going on here. Quote, and this is a quote from the article itself. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. And it talks about why the current system doesn't work. Quote, the business model also explains why the party twice rejected Sanders, the most popular politician in the country. Sanders posed an existential threat to the model. His economic proposals undermined its quote-unquote product, and his ability to raise large sums of small dollar cash threatened its revenue stream, end quote. So that is a pretty poignant, right on the money sort of explanation of why the mainstream would not want someone like Bernie Sanders coming into the equation and trying to shake things up. So then we need to go and actually look at what this author is proposing here at the end. Quote, Democrat and Republican voters are equally averse to financial institutions and large corporations. There also seems to be a ingoing yearning for solidarity. It's not class consciousness yet, but could that change? Davis is onto something important with civic structure. Left populists need a community or a movement. The left should organize, but how? American history offers some insight. In the 19th century, as now, lives were being devastated by inequality. Economic and technological forces were reshaping work, but given the rise of the progressive populists in their key movement, end quote. And that is the sum. That is where they need to go. They need to create a sense of community. They have to create a stringent identity for anybody who wants to be a part of the left, but not just an activist, not just a person out there yelling and screaming about affecting change. No, no, they need to actually cultivate an identity of someone who is willing to break the current structures in order to come out on top. And you may be saying, well, okay, hey, obvious, Alex, that's pretty obvious. Duh. I mean, why would the situation be any different? And the reason I think this is really important insight is the fact that they said community. When we have a nation that is yearning for community, when we have a population that continually wants to be a part of something, and they feel as though they're lost. And you can tap into that angst about possible class consciousness. If you can tap into that angst of, hey, I'm being mistreated, and provide them a community in the process, that is how the left will continue to grow. That is how they will build their populist movement. And that is how we may see our first proper third party. I think you could see a MAGA party develop. I don't think the groundwork is as laid as it is for progressives, because there are already people who associate more with the DSA. But if you have progressives who are able to capitalize on their clout and jump ship and actually start something that's different than DSA with a different name, then there's a possibility that that could work out. Of course, it's all speculation, but I think the author gives a pretty good idea of what that could look like throughout the course of the rest of the article. And we're reaching the time where, we're at the max. I want to bring up the Daily Delight, so I'll just tell you, if you want to read this article, it'll be linked in the description below that like and subscribe button. Also down there's plenty more. I'll actually describe all that at the end because I want to get to our Daily Delight first. So our Daily Delight comes from animals around the globe. And the headline reads, "Friendly mama bear with adorable cubs visits a man on his porch in North Carolina." And yes, you heard that right. The mama bear comes around. There's no hostility. They even bring the cubs. Everybody seems comfortable. And it's honestly a great article talking about, hey, you should be safe, but also there are opportunities for cute things like this if you are able to identify what the bears are, if you've been raising them. That doesn't mean go out to any random bear. Call Animal Patrol, of course, but this video itself gives a little bit of hope that we can coexist better with the nature or the world of nature around us. So with that said, I am going to talk about all those other things. So if you want to check out the podcast on Spotify, Podcast, Podvine, you can go there. It's on the RSS feed. You can download it, listen to it at any time. If you want to come back on Tuesday and Thursday to this YouTube channel, or if you're listening on the RSS feed, the same RSS feed, and it's 6 and 6 that will be coming out, which is 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. Also, you can go over to the Twitter handle at Your Daily Flip, where I post a video link every single day for all the videos I mentioned. So for the Daily Flip podcast as well as 6 and 6, you can go over there and you can just follow me there, and then you get direct links into what's happening. You don't have to have any subscriptions going on in your inbox. So with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe, don't die.